Hello, everyone. Welcome to this morning's episode. Hopefully, my voice is loud and clear. I wanted to discuss a very important topic, I would say, one of the most grandest mysteries of our time. What is the mind doing? That means there has been some who have attempted to define the mind, to have attempted to give it a shape, you know. But what is the mind doing after, even if we've realized its shape? What is it doing? I would like to say that this episode has another name. That means I was deciding between two names, two titles. What is the mind doing? And when emptiness fulfills itself. Now, based on how this talk goes at the end, I will choose one of the names. But for now, let's go with what is the mind doing? Let's say you just teleported onto Earth and you didn't know what a mind was. And so conveniently, there was a dictionary right beside you, let us say. And I want to read first how the dictionary has defined the mind, then it would be easier for me to share uh, the ways I perceive it. The dictionary, Saint Dictionary, tells us that the mind is a noun. Who knew this whole time? We're like, what is this mind? It's a noun. The element of a person that enables them to be aware of the world and their experiences, to think and to feel. The faculty of consciousness and thought. This is the dictionary's definition. And then a person's mental processes contrasted with physical action. That means really, if your body isn't moving, we say it's like there could be a mind, but we don't know it's there. You know. Another definition here, it says a person's ability to think and reason, the intellect. A person's memory, that's another definition the dictionary has. A particular way of thinking, influenced by a person's profession or environment. A person identified with their intellectual faculties. And I like the third definition, a person's attention. A person's will or determination to achieve something. I would say out of all these, the third one is very close. It is attention. The mind is attention instantly, you know. And the origin, here it says, it means memory, thought. So the word mind of Germanic origin means memory or thought. So it's interesting that we have maybe the idea of memory developed earlier than we could even identify mind, really. That means before you pour water, you need a glass. And so we can say memory was the allowance of mind to begin, or mind to be able to notice itself. So that's what the dictionary said. Okay, I would approach the question personally in the way where first I ask, what is the precondition to a mind? What do I need before I can even identify as a mind, to some degree, move as a mind? And so there comes the whole paradigm, which I usually say in these talks, of self and world. So we can say we know we have a mind because we are conscious of the self. We can notice our biological body, you know, and we can also notice the world this body is in. If there was right now minds, there were no bodies, there would be no word for mind. It is only because we are a form and can identify other forms that the relationship of us being a changing form in a form that's already there makes us feel as if there's a mind moving. There are moments where I feel like space is like the emptiness of the page and matter is the ink. And mind is moving matter, just like how a person would write, a sentence on an empty piece of paper, you know. I noticed that when we consider the body, the biological body, its purpose, the purpose of the body, is to continue to survive. Even cells on a very small level live to survive. So on some level, Darwin got it correct in the sense that when we look at our outer realm motivations, it is to continue, primarily, to survive. But when I look at the mind is not necessarily to survive. The mind is just to fill the void, to fill up a void, as if the mind is designed. I notice this when talking to some people, and I notice that people actually don't want to be talked to. They want to be part of. It's as if nobody wants to be communicated to. They want to be a part of the communication. I mean, I shouldn't generalize it like that, but I'm saying, like, it's like we don't. I find there's an urge, maybe in just the human creature, where it's not that we want to communicate to understand. We want to communicate to express. Understanding is another level. Honestly, when I look at just human behavior, it's either information is coming from outside And then it's like either the person's motivations and actions are coming from considerations of more in their outer realms, or their motivation of action is coming from their inner realms. That means this talk, it doesn't have, to me, I mean, it's just words. There's an energetic value to it, like the energy it's taken to give the talk. But I would say it's an inner realm effort. It's as if the cause of my attention to share, for example, in this moment is not from the outer realms. You know, it's like people are existing to themselves in a certain way, and they're existing to the world a certain way. Now, if they cannot decide, they would endlessly get pulled. You know, one simple answer to what is the meaning of life, you know, what is the point of life, you know, and it's like the most basic answer: to move. Honestly, though, when it comes to the mind, if people just notice, you know, maybe people can try this out and send me letters or send me emails on their observations. But to notice that when a person speaks, are they speaking for themselves or are they speaking for the world? You know, the body is being here. Existence is just here. But it is experience where really what we have control over. I would say when it comes to existence, I mean, sure, an earthquake can come, or let's say a tidal wave, or a lava is coming from a volcano, the person can run away from that. But I don't know. I simply find that the mind is filling up space. It has no, I mean, I don't see any other way of its expression. You know, it's like looking at a human being who hasn't used the phone before, you know, or some sort of advanced technology. It's as if you just want to know, and that knowing is an experience. It's as if like the cell, light is hitting it and it's self-replicating. Now, when it comes to the mind, sometimes I feel maybe the mind is moving the body to keep itself unknown. So many human beings have attempted to figure out what's going on. And I feel this search will continue for eons until humanity learns to accept the unknown, and therefore understand or perceive or experience other ways the mind can move. That means it's like for an athlete, it's as if you're trying to move the body in a way where it hasn't moved before. Where I would say for a person, let us say we have an athlete. Let's say there's body training and there's mind training. And so if one wanted to train their mind, just like physical training, where the body is being pushed and moved in a way where it has never been moved before, we can say that the mind of the person requires to be pushed and moved in a way it hasn't moved before. And I would say that is the greatest and closest thing to true teaching on this planet. You know, that means if you were separate, then the teacher has to be in the outer realms, you know. But if the being has realized there's an interconnectivity behind the scenes of nature, you know, it is even something so unique that we can think of. This may be strange, but we could even think of existence as a verb and non-existence. We could think of existence as a known verb and non-existence as a sort of unknown noun. Maybe that's why, you know, some scholars like Terence McKenna have titled it the transcendental object at the end of time. You know, it is one of those chaotic mysteries of our plane of existence that if we truly get to see its edge, its true nature, its true face, we could potentially become faces. I feel the mind is declaring itself into existence. That means if there is something strange that when a person vocalizes something, their inner realms solidify. So things when I speak, I totally notice that the inner realm imagery becomes solid and it becomes part of memory. Perhaps anything we are engaged with becomes a part of us, you know. There are views that, of course, the mind is an illusion. There are some people who, I would say, from the mystical yogic experience, they look at this world and they're like, whatever we do, it's like a fraction of a second. So, if all human effort in this void is meaningless, then it becomes the search of meaning from beyond this world. That means it's like it depends. Let's say every human being, whether they know it or not, they are yearning for a treasure. Now, there are some seeking this treasure in the outer realms, and there are some, let us say, some beings seeking this treasure in the inner realms. Those who seek it in the outer realms, they may fall into the path of being given and given and given. And what that means is that sometimes when life changes too quick, the person may forget themselves. And honestly, I'm just even wondering right now, what is my mind doing? And not just what is my mind doing, what is my existence doing inside my experience? And really, I would say Carl Jung termed it synchronicity, but I would say it is just the phase. It is the phase where body is realizing and through experience finally allowing mind to take over. There was something mysterious when I was in India, Rishikesh. I was there for 2 months in this living in this ashram, and in those 2 months there were these yoga classes the ashram had, and I would go and sit there, and there was a philosophy. There was someone who would talk about philosophy, and this gentleman. I mean, people called him Guruji, literally, like, you know, straight up G was teaching. And I remember this gentleman we all called Guruji, just in that space in the hall. There was this hall where he would speak. He began speaking about the idea of samadhi and the different types of samadhi and their differences. And while he was talking about philosophy, everybody was like shunned into silence by this man's presence. I was like the foreigner who was bah, 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 question after question after question. And I remember I asked him about Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and he said that's a samadhi that, if in what, like, of course, in Vedic thought, they entertain reincarnation and multiple lives very casually. It's like, oh yeah, it's nothing. I've been, existing through endless lives for eons. It's like not. It's like two eternal beings. Having a discussion. So how's your eternity? It's like, yeah, endless incarnations. How's yours? It's like the same. You know. Now, this nirvikalpa samadhi was a sort of state that, in once the person reached this state, they would. The person said, the man named Guruji there said that. What is it? Hold on. He said after nirvikalpa samadhi, you automatically become enlightened in your next lifetime, in accordance to the text. That means if you reach a certain level of noticing what's actually going on, you can't be by nature as oblivious as you were before. I think about it that if human beings weren't here, if the eyes, if biological eyes didn't exist, it's as if, why would all this be made? That means this is the most biggest, I would say, mind-boggling question. That before eyes, what was the purpose of color? What was the purpose of there being different colors, different forms? I feel there has been a secret that has been hidden. And this secret is that we are all on thin ice. And that just like Jon Snow from Game of Thrones, we know nothing. The species knows nothing. It's all an act in the void. And so this effort, it's like we have no choice. What's better, illusion or void? So people will be like, okay, void has nothing in it, at least the illusion has content, you know? And so it's like this relationship between illusion, void, illusion, void, illusion, void, until the notion of enlightenment, something from this pattern can change. That means emptiness is nothing new. And the and really what's new is what's moving to itself. The concept of novelty is to ourself. To the cosmos, the cosmos doesn't feel new, to itself maybe. Of course it doesn't. I'm not like the cosmos doesn't have a personality, but if it did. I would for the first time say, and this may be bold of me, but the purpose of evolution, I don't feel it's survival. Survival is not enough. Survival is the minimum requirement of the necessity of this creature that we are. But survival is not the game. That means if you your whole life are just finding food, filling up your stomach, finding food, filling up your stomach, finding food, filling up your stomach, and there is no other dimension, then it's as if like giving someone a Ferrari and they're driving it at 10 miles per hour. It's as if like you can drive it at 10 miles per hour, but also you're not designed only for that. And I feel that the advancement of human communication, its depths, pretty much three options really. It's temporary, it's eternal, it's empty, or it is all. I would say four options. Let's say four options, four possibilities. Right now, I am a temporary being here. That's one view. Yeah, I look at the biological body, super temporary. I look at my mind, it's like just the viewer. The mind is like the candlelight that has, like the wax doesn't explain the candlelight. It explains maybe the potential of the light of the candle to be there, but it doesn't explain the candlelight. And so, when we realize we cannot use any knowledge through duality to realize the mind, so it would be as if like there's a temporary self, there is a void self, there is a singular self that is all, and then there is the eternal. And if eternity possesses personality, it gets bored and it must either destroy itself or create itself. That means really you can say, isn't it funny when a temporary being gets bored? In some sense, that's what the being does either. Like in life, pretty much your decisions either have a creative intent or a destructive intent. Somebody even summed it up, pretty much human beings, they either act through love or they act through fear. Either the person is afraid and they start their behavior, or they have loved something, which is their strength. Love is not just you know a heart-shaped balloon. It is the strength of the value for a position of the mind. As in warriors back in the day, they would go to the battlefield and then they would, in some sense, think of some the reason they had to come back to human civilization. You know, and that's where love comes in. That means it's as if like it's as if the mind is designed only to love, and the body is designed to fear. That means when I identify with the temporary dimension of my existence, what all you can do is you're staring at emptiness. Pretty much the moment they tell you you're a temporary being, it's as if I find that's an inner death. That means when the young child is just being energy moving forward in the world and suddenly realizes, whoa, 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 I gotta look in the front windows of the life I'm living. And it's strange. It's as if we just want to live for our bodies, we forget the treasures of the mind. And if we go too deeply into the mind, I will tell you, it definitely has consequences on the body. There was this very enlightened, liberated being named Sri Ramana Maharshi, this liberated man in India. And so this man would sit and he would go into samadhi, and he would suddenly open his eyes. Like he would just sit for hours in the same position. His eyes would open for like a mini blink at the world and the room, and he would be in some other part of the room. And samadhi is when the unknown is bringing you to stillness. Usually, you can say most teachers of meditation are telling the student, yo, be still, be quiet, quiet your mind, you know, free yourself from all your past artwork behind your eyes. But when the unknown takes you to stillness, that is irresistible. That means without anybody saying anything, your attention suddenly notices something and is moving somewhere. There was this animation film called Madagascar, and in it, I remember there was this lion, and this lion who had lost its intuition, and when this lion went back, his intuition was coming back, his animal instincts, and to the lion, it appeared as these neon signs, like pointing the way or something, if I remember correctly. So I would say it's one of those things where in this life, after you have been fascinated with others, after you have even been fascinated with the world, you come to the self. And after you have been fascinated by the self and its world, then you come back to the outer realms. And then you might start a podcast. Yeah. So that intuition there is a relationship you can have with it. And I would say that's one thing I can tell you I have, you know, maybe not like the movie Taken guy, but like I have different skills in different areas and different things, different interests I have pulled the strings of. But I would tell you that one thing I am very acquainted with uh, is how, in some sense, the inner silence finds you, and after it finds you, what tends to happen. And so there is a release. There is a sort of expression threshold in any moment. Think of it this way, that we have no choice based on being in a stimulus world for the inner reality to also respond to stimulus. So that would mean that if you were to visualize like yourself from childhood, let's say, or whatever, let's say you remember yourself a memory from 10 years ago, and you imagine that version of you from that memory 10 years ago is standing right beside you, and now you're trying to visualize what that sense of self from that memory standing right beside you now in this moment is going to visualize about what it sees now. Pretty much it reaches a point where you are imagining your memory. And when it becomes non-dual, there is an automatic release, and then there is silence. That inner silence finds the person when you no longer care to push the world. That's it. Deep down, you treat the world as if you are its guest. That means when you are a guest at someone's home, you don't act like it is your own house, you know, in a way, you know. In yogic thought, it is the same, where they're like, if you're walking in samsara, do not treat like this is your home or whatever only. Like I do talk about the advanced civilization and all of this for humanity and its effort, but I would say that's because that's for my passion of what can potentially happen in the outer realms. It's like right now we're driving a car that's about to break, and I'm saying, all right, let's build an advanced civilization. Let's get on a better car. Let's 8 billion people drive in a better advanced civilization. But at the same time, from a yogic standpoint, a yogi may hear me saying, hey, human beings build an advanced civilization, and that yogi may say, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That is where the mind is being attached to samsara. And so this is the very complex task. And I knew this from the beginning. I knew this paradigm, this dichotomy here, that it's as if how can we live for the world at the same time step out of the illusion, you know? And there is this sentence, I believe, from Christian wisdom where it says to be in the world but not of it, right? It's literally we have to build an advanced civilization like that, but 8 billion beings. And for 8 billion beings to be in the world but not of it, what is in the world? Right now, our definitions of who we are we are in the world and we are of it. And so our definition of self requires world. Our definition of world requires self. You know, the mind feels to me as if it's a faster film. It's as if I feel my mind is living. I think everybody's mind, from an unconscious viewpoint, as if you don't from your whole unconscious was a conscious mind. Imagine. So let's say you became conscious of your whole unconscious, like Carl Jung has this quote where he says, "Unless you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." So let's say we made the whole unconscious conscious, that would be a totally different consciousness than now. Imagine this is a mountain, and from a Vedic standpoint or Buddhist standpoint, you're climbing it every lifetime. You know? You're climbing this mountain repetitively, every day even. Let's say you don't like this idea of like reincarnation, so entertain it this way. Imagine every day you wake up is a lifetime. Imagine every day you live is like a lifetime. So it's as if in a process where it repeats this cyclical nature. Even the ancient Greeks had this idea. They kept it alive through the ideology of Atlas. Atlas would push this boulder, would push the weight of the earth, above this mountain, and then suddenly an eagle would eat his liver or something, and then he would fall down, and he had to push the boulder up again or something like that. A sort of chain, a sort of cyclical chaos, not chaos, a cyclical constant introduction, as if every lifetime you're trying to finish this artwork and you never get the chance. And so after some point the person is like, I've been drawing this artwork for eternity. And so the painter, the cosmic painter, drops his pen on the table, but then picks it back up again because he needs to make a point. So the way out of that cyclical existence was, in some sense, either you found the hidden formula or you were never here. That means either the psychology redeems or returns back to the void and the whole consciousness restarts. Literally, it's like a computer restarting endlessly. It's like, why couldn't in one lifetime all the requirement to use the computer be finished, And something even more peculiar, more stranger than this idea I would say, is the idea that what if, just like how we look at our hand and there's like 5 different fingers connecting to the same palm, what if this life of ours is one finger? And there is not only other parallel lives, other parallel realms of humanhood, but there is also collective. There is also dimensions where, like in one side of the coin, 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere. On the other side of a coin, massive field of space, like smiling as manifestation moving, Honestly, my heart and mind, uh, if they were two commanders, they have. There is something that I could tell you. It was a very hard decision for me to make. Back to the idea that in order to be enlightened, or let us say liberated, one has to realize this world is an illusion, and to be able to discriminate first what the illusion is, then they will notice exactly instantaneously by seeing the illusion accurately the truth. So that means the brain has to keep the illusion, but the heart never was in it. And so only way that we can get out of the simulation of reality is not to escape it, but to realize that it is one finger of many. And so we are actually the palm. At least that's how far I've seen it. Because I've had moments where I could tell you it's you can say it's just not foolishness, but I would say it's sometimes the immaturity of my own soul in front of itself. That there's moments where I've been in intensity and my inner realms have animated too far. What that means is it's as if like the person is, let's say, paranoid, and one single like leaf falling on a pond makes them feel as if like a tsunami has arrived or something. So I've had moments where I could say the simple has echoed super complex in super complex ways. And there's moments where I've looked at the most complex thing, and it's just had a simple echo to me. You know, that means it's as if like it would be an example where I would say like imagine you're a busy person, you know, you have some errand to hold, and you suddenly meet like I don't know Michelangelo somehow from the past through a strange time machine left by an ignorant time traveler or something. You know, came to the future, and suddenly you were in an elevator, and Michelangelo, this great sculptor, arrived, right? And Michelangelo was like, I've come to the future. I have to share my secret teaching of like I don't know how to make art or whatever. And so imagine in that moment, you just look at Michelangelo, and even though you realize who he is, you're like, I got somewhere to go. That means you have access to the secret, but you still continue your walk in the illusion. To leave the world means to not exist. To be in the world means to suffer. That means that it's as if like we want to get out of this dimension, there would be no us to get out, you know? And as long as we're in, so literally it's a sphere. Outside of the sphere, we're not defined by the sphere. Inside the sphere, we can only be defined by the sphere. You know, I would say all these talks are like attempts of me trying to figure out what my mind is doing. Like, I feel that the mind can be communicated to. The mind is awareness at its core. If you don't fear space, if you don't fear being space, if you don't fear what is there before you are, then the idea of you doesn't limit you. And if you can see beyond yourself, you're no longer just yourself. It doesn't mean the person is something else, but it just means the self is. When Iron Man makes a better suit, he steps into that one. So the mind is the. Let's look at it from a different angle. Let's say, I mean, it's still part of the Vedic angle where they say the idea of Maya. Maya pretty much means movement. And samsara is like this realm of cause and effect that we're in. And so it's this endless cause and effect where you cause something, something happens to you. Because something happens to you, you respond to it, you cause something else. And it's this endless, like, you know, every single move you do moves something else which has to be moved back into place, you know? So really, it makes it, it's as if karma is designed for the identity. That means, let's say if somebody asks you and you've realized you're a presence of energy and attention instantly prior to any other snapshot of a moment, that could be a secondary thought rather than the momentary attention. Like there is something about just being here that strangely suffices as existential meaning. That means really when I look at what the mind is doing, we ask, okay, how's the mind being there's something it's doing? And when you look at how the mind is being, is like the brain is individual, but the mind that is like this a sort of spherical uh, peripheral awareness. Like imagine right now your attention to your moment. Let's say if you're in a room or you're outside or wherever you are. Let's say you were walking. It's like your awareness to your environment is like a sphere, right? It's like the candle flames glow, right? That glow is the whole moment. That glow encompasses the potential of the light, you know? You know something fascinating about karma? When you realize you are the presence of the unknown, then the question comes, who has karma? And you realize all activity is in the presence of an unknown. That means, I don't say it, but really I am kind of scanning the edges of language in my experience. And I can tell you that thoughts are part of the moment, but they are not us. They are not anything ever. That means a person can name their dog, but that dog's just hearing sound and body language, perceiving body. It's like a person can, see a bear in a cartoon, like hugging like a kid or something, and a kid could see a grizzly bear and want to go hug that bear, you know, and that bear has no conception of the inner realm of the person, you know. It doesn't even have a conception of its own inner realm. We are that unique animal that has an opinion here. A lot of the other animals are like, okay, we can't even ask the question. So technically, the only way we can save the world without having karma is to realize that the unknown was here first, rendering all relationships a potential to start again. Somebody once said, your responsibility in this life suggests really your destiny. That means what you respond to and what you become responsible for, which is a sort of response. Let's say even we write this unique, equation, linguistic equation, where we're like responsibility equals response plus ability. So the response has to do with your attention, and the ability has to do the response has to do with the world, the ability has to do with the self. We can even totally shift to a view of psychology that people are never their thoughts, they are just activating themselves through language. And let's say there's two types of speech. Okay, let's say it like this. Let's say that waves are image carriers. Let's say a wave can carry an image, or let's say some sort of information. I don't know. Actually, I don't know how to connect that, but really, Your ability is based on how you define yourself. And your response is based on how you define your world. If you define the world as a bad place, you're actually gonna not care for it subconsciously. I would say Gianna in the chat section says yes. Grand new rising. We are here to love each other. All that matters. Yeah, I first of all I like that comment. I just want to say that love. I would say love is important, of course. You know, it is the you can say it is the mind, the greatest gift the mind can open here on in this plane. But I would say if we're to look at it for the mind of civilization, love can't go on this battlefield alone. We can say love is the commander, but then we need the intellect. Literally, for me, I feel we don't realize it, but knowledge, subjective knowledge, is literally like a machine realm. Sometimes for me, I have this view that it's like memory is always there. It's just that the attention is moving. That means imagine every experience you have. We have this view that the universe moves, right? Yeah, we have this view that the universe changes and moves, and is even what's expanding faster than light is space. You know, but I would say what the brain seems to be doing is that it's copy pasting the outer realms, then keeping this copy pasted version of the outer realm static like a chunk of clay, and then the person has a choice to sculpt this. You know, I will tell you that there's so many times it's like one of the most basic things is to get comfortable with the void. It has been the hardest thing, but once you can, then you actually can breathe simply here. That a dimension of, this may sound a bit, soft, but a dimension of beauty opens. But this beauty is not the beauty like looking at a sunset. Ah, so beautiful. It's like the beauty of efficient movement. That means imagine all human beings were living inefficiently, then suddenly this wind out of nowhere, just hit the planet. And when this wind hit the planet, at the moment the wind passed, everybody suddenly behaved differently. You know? As if this world is filled with boxes, everybody having boxes on their head, and eventually nature, through direct experience, throws those boxes off. I would say even the shamanic approach was like that. It was throwing off how the person, how they had boxed the world first. I would say it's a relationship with language. And this may sound strange, but I would say if you feel that life is moving you, you can't fear it. And if you feel you're moving life, the only thing you can fear is yourself. Somebody once said people don't remember what you say, and they remember how you make them feel. I don't know what this was from, but it was something like that, some wisdom. And I was, it was in that moment where I felt to make a prayer, to the universe. I hope not. There is, of course, just a constant relationship with the unknown. I mean, we sleep, for God's sakes. We sleep. We totally, like, the computer shuts down. The biological hardware just goes on sleep mode, and the mind still continues. Our mind is not powered. You know what it is? It's like I feel our minds, our bodies are from Earth, but our minds are not. And when I say our minds are not from Earth, I mean they're not from the observable universe. That includes whatever archetype, whether you think deity, God, alien, Superman, whatever you think, you know. And I would say this may be a very interesting answer to the title. What is the mind doing? The mind is waiting. And what is it waiting for? Causal instruction. You know, we don't have this ability now, but I hope in the future, imagine all objects become intelligent and we find some sort of technology where imagine you said, like there's a coffee cup in front of me. Imagine I said, like, coffee cup, move a meter into the air. Imagine I just voiced that. I just said a sentence. And imagine there was such advanced AI technology in the whole space or whatever that the cup automatically listened and started moving. You know? I feel this may be one of the most strangest ideas, but I feel godhood can become boring. Gianna says, do you believe we are three-part beings? I'm saying we are not the tip of the iceberg, you know? But I would say that if one was to look at the outer realms and the consequences of the inner realms moving in the outer realms, there would be three narrowing dimensions. And those three dimensions in archaic form is like Brahman, which is the creator, you can say archetype, and then Vishnu, the maintainer, and then Shiva, the destroyer. So these are for me symbols, you know, archetypes. These archetypes are dimensions where you will find anything. You could look at any moment in life, and you could see one of these. Imagine these were like each 33%. In any moment, you could see that. Some moments, like the maintenance percentage, is more. It's as if like Vishnu is more, and the presence of Vishnu is greater in the room. Some moments there's destructive, let's say in an earthquake or something, it's like the presence of Shiva is the percentage of Shiva. I can't believe I'm giving a percentage to Shiva. But I'm saying that 33%, that one third, it's like it's a balance, you know. And the most incredible discovery, we are not statues. But we are judging ourselves like we're statues, you know. Judging the world like it's like a statue. It's like it's a photograph. Like we wish it was that easy. Yeah. You know, the mind is an archaic term. We should probably create a new language, a new term for it. We can call it neo-mind. We can call it mind. Sounds off. I mean, we can. Guys, I'm just trying to figure out like what new term I can give the mind that would uh, give it do it multidimensional justice. Um, I mean, inner realms is a way I've discussed it, but I would say the word mind. It feels like a part of a word. So let's say design, mind, mind design, as if they were one word. Mind. Guys, I would say this is the part of the talk where the audience has to just wait until I figure this out. I would say we can just, instead of changing the word or finding a new word mind, we could just treat it as a location. We can say this concept of mind is a state, you know? The mind state, the body state, the solar state, you know? The mind plane. I mean, the mental plane, we have that term. But there's something about that it's like, maybe I should just let the word go. Mind. There is no such thing as a mind. There is a mind dream. So let's say this would be the term. Maybe this, I mean, this term, I feel it's a unique way. Mind dream, maybe that word can be designed. But I would say it still doesn't feel satisfying to me. I would say, okay, I'll just pause this guy's continue to talk. Maybe I'll figure it out. Body, mind, soul. Body, mind, soul. Body, mind, soul. Body, mind, soul. Solid, liquid, gas. Solid, liquid, gas. Solid, liquid, gas. Known, void, unknown. Known, void, unknown. And I remember in other talks I spoke about the ring of the absent heaven, this model of the realm being in 4 dimensions. I would say, oh my god, guys, I got the right word. We have, just to interject here, we have mind being like this. So if people look at the chat section, so it's as if there is a word between the letters M and D. M and D. So I would say, let's say in the future, the mind is one mind. We all become one mind. So we can, for the first time, create a word that is literally spelled this way. The mind, you see how it's like it becomes one? So the monad. I don't know, but I feel like there's something there. Alright, guys, that's my attempt. Um, it may not sound the best, but in regards to the architecture of lettering, from the individual mind, we're going towards the collective monad. You know, guys, imagine, I just wondered right now, imagine when a person writes a sentence, they suddenly draw a circle and they start writing on that circle as if it's a line to write a sentence on. There's so many ways language can move. It's ridiculous, you know. It's as if this world is just an all you can eat, is an all you can see buffet of just design, endless design. And really, what it is we are just part of a process, ultimately. The body is defined by the ecosystem. It has to listen, like literally, we have to treat our body like the world to survive physically. But if this physical survival, there was no problem yet. We had gotten through it somehow, then the mind's activity would be left. And the mind is just another step towards the unknown. That means that we can even dismiss the word in general. You know, we can say there's only bodies here. We can say all of this is a simulation of souls. You know, or we can think we have minds and there's endless parallel dimensions. You know? Let us say the mind, uh, all the sensory perception we receive, this information becomes like the container. And then free will is there to choose what to throw in the basket of your conscious memory, or just the basket of your memory. Even it could go into the unconscious. You know, if you think about it, every human being should be a master designer by now. Just think of how many different lines and different ways to form and design throughout the day, from the beginning of your from your birth till up to now. How many different ways your eyes, like a camera, have recorded, and it's only the conscious ones that are become accessible memory. But I think the rest is not inaccessible. It's just it requires to be activated. That means it's like when the person picks up the spoon, it's like the neural networks of like that have developed for eating kind of like light up. The mind is trying to fill the void by expressing itself potentially as all that is. This copy paste of the world that's based on the sensory perception. I mean, honestly, this is strange, but imagine a time where you were late, and then you kind of see, like, how can a person visualize two senses of time, two ways time is moving? That has to suggest an inner realm. That means if you can experience how time is moving right now for you in the moment, you know, let's say it feels like a slow day, you know? So let's say it feels like a slow day, but you suddenly remembered a memory where it was such a quick and fast and efficient day, you know? So it would be as if in that moment where you're feeling it's a slow day, you're remembering a fast day. So which day is it? It's like, what is the speed of the moment? And really, that's the power of attention. I think this is what goes on when they say when the time flies when you're having fun. It's not that time flies. It's that the person's attention is not keeping the world in the same way. It has let itself free. You know, you can even say, what is the mind doing? It's creating a sense of here, being here. The mind also feels like a story engine, as if the mind is an organ designed to receive through duality. The body on a singular existential level. It's as if we experience things dualistically, but we exist physically in a singular way. I was thinking of, we have body, mind, and soul as like the traditional view. Now, imagine we had body as the singular dimension, mind as the dualistic dimension, soul as the infinite dimension, and the fourth has to be prior to origin. So that means it's like all the numbers after one are looking at number two and be like, yo, who did this? Who started this numerology? You know, and number two's like, don't look at me, it's number one who did it. And we go and look at, let's say, all the numbers fathomable, you know, they came to the number one and they're like, why have you started this cycle of karma, you know, for all of us, you know. And it's there where one points to zero. That means truth can only exist if life is a simulation. If we weren't temporary, if we were immortal right now, we wouldn't be caring for philosophy that much. It's because we're temporary and we have to, in some sense, meet the void. It's coming. Eventually. And so it really makes sense. It's like a person being like, oh my god, I'm on a rock in emptiness. I'm going eventually biologically towards emptiness. All my dreams and ambitions, everything's going to emptiness. Then what's the meaning of life? And that's where really that you are in a living performance view comes in. And I would say that's one thing that I feel There's many ways I would say I it's as if I would say the best critic of these talks is myself. I wouldn't say there's a better critic of these talks than me out there. But it's just that in the void, what is the purpose of movement? And I am telling you, somehow we should just be grateful for everything that's developed and just add additional dimensions. Pretty much the task of the future generations is to actualize the potential we provide for them. That means it's like in my inner realms, I enjoy the world as an advanced civilization, but in the outer realms, I mean, come on. In the outer realms, it's like you'll be like, it's like there people come and say, Mr. Within, why do you want to build an advanced civilization? I'm like, look, just look at the world. Is this enough? You see, just like this flower and the wallpaper, its center is veiled. And so we have been veiled by every experience, every position of ideology. I found it may be strange, but you know what it is? It's like normality is a wavelength. And when you change the radio channel from that, you suddenly notice how strange the world can be. And that strangeness either intimidates you or it fascinates you. If the strangeness and unknown and sense of mystery of the world bothers you, then you as a human being are still like you're still under the wing of the bird. Do you know? But there will come a time where everybody has to jump into an unknown sky. It's just that's the way nature's designed. Nature's like, yeah, you're pretty much gonna walk in this park of a world, in the garden of existence for some time, and then after that, you're just gonna dissolve into sky. And imagine the let's make this hypothetical story setting, and imagine the person's like, what do you mean I'm gonna dissolve into the sky? And the person's like, yeah, that's just all that you can become, after you're done here. And so that person may go their whole life being like, hey, everybody, we're going to dissolve into the sky. But then at that point, the person realizes this is something where I would say I've had a lot of discussions with. It's this concept that a lot of people are seeking a non-dual truth. And this non-dual truth, its outcome, is really as if like you are looking for something you already are. And so what I mean by that is, imagine everybody was already enlightened. How would you live? Imagine it's like the world was enlightened. People maybe their antennas may be off, but imagine the world was enlightened. You know? Honestly, I would say the most badass thing I've seen a human being do on this planet would be Buddha's silent sermon. This person, in a world where language was being worshipped, dared to just hold a flower, smile, and look at the flower. And all his disciples in front of him are like, holy shit, this is some sacred level. All his disciples are there super seriously trying to be like, okay, let's absorb, let's try to hear this silent sermon of Buddha, you know? And then there's this old man, this is an actual story of Buddha, where there's an old man, this old man suddenly, he sees Buddha, this, guy holding a flower, smiling, looking at the flower, and the old man just smiles. And this becomes legend. I forget the old man's name, but the old man becomes like part of legend where people are like, he's the only one who heard Buddha's sermon. And I wondered, why did Buddha hold that flower in his hand? Was the purpose of that flower to burn something or away from the mind of the person? Or was it, in some sense, you can say Buddha was holding that flower as if, before we have any sort of interpretation, this is nature. So officially, to all individual conscious beings in this universal sector, I would say, in this plane of existence, welcome to nature. It is the greatest teacher, the only teacher I would allow. People, in my view, at least in my school of thought, the concept of the teacher, the only time it's allowed to be evoked, if the whole world is your teacher. And I will tell you, it is true. It is true that nature can become your ally, that the force of the living can become your ally. Our bodies are born, but our psychologies awaken. We just wake up suddenly. Isn't it interesting? The body, the person's born, there's no consciousness, but personhood begins from the first conscious memory. Most likely when the child realizes, looks at itself in the mirror, or finds some self-reflective moment. And it's something very interesting. Let me tell you what's happening. I find this is as a general global event happening in all cultural programs, where children of the future generations are trying to grow up quicker. And so imagine there's one generation, then the children of the next generation decide to implement this algorithm, or they suddenly get pushed into this algorithm, and then the children of the future generations are trying to, suddenly they grow up quicker, and it's like the age becomes younger, but the behavioral psychology becomes older, you know? And eventually they will reach a point where it has been like trying to keep the past alive until one future wave of a future generation will come where they will be like, okay, there's literally nothing left to follow. We have to build. We have to design the eyes of our species if we care for what's here. To usher ourselves into the global human being event. Like, when will this come? Like it's going to come if you just fast forward. Eventually human beings are going to be like, enough of these abstract divisions of humanhood. We can even create the structure of the body, mind, soul, and truth, let's call it. Or let's call it, it's strange because it's like pre-body and it's after the soul. So it would be the pre-body after soul. This would be a very interesting thought experiment. Imagine you suddenly had access to four parallel senses of self. That means in four parallel versions of Earth, hypothetically, just entertain this. Let's say in four parallel dimensions of Earth, you, in some sense, all the senses, all the versions of you that each were doing something different with a slight detail off, universal detail off. And it would be as if, like, imagine four senses of self realize they have the same mind. Or let's say five. Let's say five versions of the person in five parallel realities. They realize they're all the palm. The fingers realize they're all the palm. So it would be as if any finger can in any moment go become the palm and get the information of the other parallel realities, in some sense. So what I'm trying to say is, like, as an individual, you can't go further than you see. But as your moment, you are all that you can see. So technically you can see anything. If you want to get Akashic about it. The mind is an artist. The body is a builder. And the soul is like the witness. It's as if my body is a theatrical performance for my mind. My mind is a theatrical performance for, let's entertain the pure unknown awareness as the soul. And I will say the soul is a theatrical performance for the universal being. That means imagine, like, aliens come down to Earth. Like, let's say, again, another hypothetical tangent. Let's say, like, I don't know, 200 years from now, aliens come down to Earth, okay? This advanced alien civilization comes down to Earth to shake hands. And they come and shake hands, and they're like, okay, so who are you? And they're all waiting, and we're kind of like, oh my god, are these aliens, like, about to giggle or something? Like, we think, like, these aliens are, like, about to laugh. And the aliens are like, so who are you guys? And we're like, we're the human species, we are humanity, the glory, we tell them our history and share our sciences and all of this somehow. And imagine, meanwhile, we're telling our human story, the aliens are just laughing. They're just laughing, just hard, like falling on the ground, laughing. They can't hold their laughter. And let's say this alien laughter was, like, as beautiful as, like, a Mozart symphony or something. Like, the alien laughter was like classical music level. So, so let's say the laughter of these aliens was like music to our ears or something at the same time. And we'd suddenly be like, hey aliens, why are you laughing at us? And the aliens are like, you guys think you can know you're something in a world so big? You think you can just name it and that's good enough? So the aliens are laughing because we haven't realized we're energy before we're language. And people would be like, Mr.Within, energy is a word. And I'll be like, unspeakable energy. It's like, what do you want me to say? It's like the person's like, what is the path to truth? And the person's like, unspeakable effort. And the person's like, what do you mean? And it's like, if I can tell you that it's like, it's unspeakable. I would say the mind, from an evolutionary perspective, really is it's just deciding. Let's say there is no such thing as a mind. There is a mind decision. Let's say there is a word, we call it mind decision. Guys, this is a technique, something I would say, something I noticed in the design of language. I called it letter linking. I actually named it in one talk. So what it is I look at words where the first letter of the word and the last letter of the word are the same letter. Then you can, anytime you find two words, they can letter link. I created that term, coined that term for it, you know? So these words that I'm writing here in the chat section, they are letter linked words. They're linked by one letter, but they're two different words, therefore being rendered one by having one thing in common. So think of it as, right now I'm writing mind decision, this word, and equals the mind is a decision. This process of letter linking can create endless words, guys. I think this is a backup system algorithm. Anytime, even if, let's say, this is a way where robots can endlessly create new words for us. And really, when you realize the candle wax melts, guys, then you will realize from where I have been speaking. I have technically been speaking from a future that is also now, if the future returns to the board. I would say that I personally do entertain that there are lords of karma here. That just like a human being looks at an ant, that it is very probable that we're being looked at by something. Now, our relationship with that something has been through narrative, and then trying to bring that narrative to life. But I would say, when the world becomes your teacher, the lessons are through you. You know, I would say it's as if, like, just think about it. Let's say the planet was alive and wanted to speak to you somehow. The planet doesn't have a voice, you know? The planet is your voice. So if you, as just a view, as an attributeless view, just observe the moment without even any language there, just observe the moment, you will notice how the earth is moving. In some sense, in your psychology. The poet Hafez has this quote. He says, "One regret, dear world, I wish not to have on my deathbed is that I did not kiss you enough." You see, there's something about that, as if there's this living, precious value, and if life is not lived, then it has not been utilized. Imagine you got into an Iron Man suit, but you never actually flew into the sky with it. Imagine you got into an Iron Man suit and you walk down the street. It's just like, why, if you're gonna walk, why wear the Iron Man suit? You know? It's like, why be a human being if your truth has to be non-dual truth only? You know? I would say a yin-yang civilization would be the only way. Rather than us maybe thinking even of one civilization, let's say civilization 2.0 becomes a civilization where literally there is two different massive kingdoms. That means imagine two kingdoms like a Venn diagram, and then there being a third kingdom. Do you know? That means technically we're creating two civilizations that are intersecting, and their intersection is creating a third type of civilization. Do you know? And so I would say, anyways, let's keep it to the dual, in the sense that the yin-yang civilization, that means we create an incredible, chaotic system, civilization, and we keep a ordered source. That's pretty much civilization 1.0. And now, the only thing left is to build civilization 2.0 to balance the yin yang circle. That means to build an incredibly peaceful civilization, but its leadership is in some sense, or I would say, okay. Let me backpedal here. Let me look at the geometry of what I'm saying again. Yin Yang civilization, kingdom of chaos, but with a dot of order, like the yin yang symbol there in it, okay? Kingdom of order with a bit of chaos in it. So we need to, in a world of chaos, have a little bit of order, and in the world of order, have a little bit of chaos. Now the civilization 1.0, it's like chaos and we have a little bit of order. Now we have to create a complete outer realm probability that is completely in order. That means it's like we're experiencing an inefficient civilization with certain efficient, let's say, uh, like an efficient circle in it, and and now the only thing left is to create and to experience an outer realm efficient civilization in the inner realms having some efficiency. You know what that means? That means we have to build an advanced civilization for fools. And if you're a Buddhist, honestly, every life you start as a fool. Can you imagine the Buddhists went, let's say, of course, guys, I'm saying it with the respect for these ideals, but I'm saying imagine this person, this disciple went to this sage, let's say Buddhist sage, and was like, I've become conscious of all my lifetimes. Now I just want to know why. Why was I set into motion in this karmic existence? And imagine there's this pause and silence, and the sacred guru is about to speak, you know, and it's like the. Imagine the guru looks at the person. It's like, because you're attached, you know. Because you're taking it too seriously, relax. It's like, why can't I access ultimate truth? It's like you're being too serious. Imagine if you were simpler, that consequences of nature could perhaps be simpler. In the inner realms, I mean, for the mind's position. Life moves us, and now we can move life. And the first thing is to keep it moving, of course. That should be like, you know, the essence of living on Earth. Just keep it moving, whatever it is. Whatever the person does, I'm telling you, just effort is is an art. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Um, the aim of this episode was to say pretty much that the mind is the body is surviving and the mind is filling up space. The mind is like just here to express. It's as if the mind's kind of like strangely programmed with the instruction, like, go forth and explore. And it could be the case that even though a person may have a lot of beliefs, but deep down they're an emotional being that can't even be shaped. That means if, like, when you look at, for example, let's say a refrigerator salesman, and this refrigerator salesman is like, it gives this like incredible pitch, like, sir, buy this refrigerator. This refrigerator has this and that and this and that, and it's from the future, and you're gonna love it, and da 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 da, you know. And the person at the end is like, oh yeah, I can totally see how this refrigerator is from the future. It's just that I don't feel like it. I feel like I want to buy this one. Do you know? And so it becomes one of those things where at the end of all rational reasoning, it's as if even the rational vision was seeing. Then it's like, why are the emotions here? And you get feedback from them. You know, there was a character in this show called Money Heist. There was this character named the Professor. In it, there was a scene in this show where the professor says, I don't let my thoughts get bypassed by my emotions. Something like that. I don't let my thoughts get bypassed by emotion. But what it is at the end of rational, all the outcomes, you're left with emotion, which is that whole anticipation of the next one. Pretty much you see, then you respond, and then you for a moment don't see, then you see again. And it's strange. We got to treat the universe as our body to discover a mind that surpasses the whole universe. And as Ralph Waldo Emerson says, let us be silent that we may hear the whispers of the gods. I'll be on Discord for anyone interested or has anyone who has a question or wants to talk through voice. Blessings. Thanks for listening. And one thing I would say, what is the mind doing? We can say it's just growing. It's just happening. And in certain moments, it can consciously occur. You can implement design, a sort of strategy. That means your mind can live earlier than your body, and then your body has another probability you can engage. But anyways, that I would keep it at, yeah. And ultimately, it's like, if the whole thing is, if all of existence is just surprising, all you can do is trust it. It's like, when the universe, when existence, if existence was a gift given to an eternal being, it's as if the point of it was, you got to trust it to open it. When human beings can trust each other, and there's this advanced principles, in the context and the story, the ethos of the world, the inspiring story of the world. Find the freedom before the word freedom existed. That's the true freedom. Much blessings.